Long before madness began to knock at midnight, Titus was an ordinary man who used to sleep like a human being. He would return from work, eat whatever Bethel placed in front of him, complain small about the government, watch the news, yawn loudly, and then surrender to bed with peace. If there was a sleeping competition, Titus would collect gold medal without training. Bethel liked that version of her husband. He laughed easily, woke with strength, and helped carry buckets of water on weekends. He even told jokes that did not require explanation. Until one day when the internet found him. Nobody knows which video started it. Maybe it was the man who was shouting inside the phone that changed his destiny. The man wore a suit, walked in front of an expensive car, and pointed at the camera with fire in his eyes. "While you are sleeping," the man said, "someone else is winning." Titus sat up. "Winning what?" The man continued, "Poor people love comfort. Rich people love sacrifice." Titus paused the video. He looked at Bethel, who was already asleep beside him. Comfort, sacrifice. His heart beat faster. He pressed play. By the time the video finished, Titus was no longer a regular husband. He had joined an invisible army of future billionaires. He looked at the time. It was 11:47 p.m. Too early to be poor. He picked another video. This one shouted even louder. "If you sleep for 8 hours, you are sleeping away your destiny." Titus nodded seriously. Destiny must not escape, so he stayed awake till 2 a.m. In the morning, his alarm rang like an enemy, but his eyes refused to open. His head was heavy as if it carried bricks, but Titus remembered the suit man, sacrifice, so he stood up heroically, almost fainted, and then used the wall for support. Bethel watched him. She asked, "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing," he said proudly. "I am grinding." Grinding what? She wanted to ask, but she brushed her teeth instead. Well, that was the beginning. From that day, night changed meaning in their house. When Bethel prepared for sleep, Titus prepared for future. He bought notebooks, wrote down his goals, and downloaded podcasts. He watched men who never slept, men who shouted at the camera, men who claimed that rest was the enemy of progress. Bethel would lie in bed watching the blue light from his phone shine like a small generator. "Titus, come and sleep," she would say. "Sleep?" he replied with pity. "Do you want us to remain like this forever?" Bethel looked around their room. It was not a palace, but it was also not a bush. "What is wrong with this?" she asked. Titus sighed deeply, the sigh of a man whose wife did not understand greatness. "You have small vision," he said. "I pity you." Bethel raised an eyebrow. "Vision that is sleeping?" He ignored her. One night, she woke up by 1 a.m. Titus was still watching videos. The motivational speaker inside the phone was sweating and screaming, "You must suffer now." Bethel sat up and asked, "Is he the one that will suffer or you?" Titus adjusted his earphones. "Please, let me focus." "Focus on what?" she asked. "Titus, you have office to go to tomorrow." Titus pointed at his chest and said, "Champions do not complain." Bethel lay back down and muttered, "Champions will soon collapse." Titus smiled in the darkness. Ordinary people always feared greatness. As time went on, Titus stopped coming to bed early. Even when he lay down, sleep avoided him because ideas were always running marathon in his head. Start a business, build an empire, wake up early, hustle harder. Morning became an enemy to him. Alarm would ring and Titus would fight it like spiritual warfare. He would sit, stand, lie down and stand again. Bethel would watch and say, "Great man, your kingdom is calling." Titus would frown. "Are you mocking me?" "I am married to you," she replied. "I must survive." At work, he yawned like a politician and drank coffee that did nothing for him. But he promised himself that one day he would laugh at all this suffering. At night, he returned home tired. But instead of sleeping, he opened YouTube again. "Never give up," someone shouted. "I will never," Titus replied. Bethel stood at the door and said, "You are not supposed to give up sleep." Titus turned and glared. "Sleep is for poor people." Bethel blinked. "Who told you that?" "All of them," he replied, pointing at the phone. Bethel walked closer. She looked at the men shouting motivation from mansions and asked, "Do they know you?" Titus waved the question away. "They are teaching me. They don't need to know me." Bethel laughed. "Well, they are selling you insomnia." Titus did not like the joke at all. "You will see. Don't worry. One day we'll thank the suffering." Bethel folded her arms and said, "I prefer thanking mattress to this." But Titus did not listen to her. He began to measure people by their bedtime. If any neighbor switched off the lights by 10 p.m., Titus would shake his head and say, "Comfort zone." If someone said they slept early, he would look at them with sympathy and mutter, "No wonder." Meanwhile, his salary remained normal, his transport fare remained normal, and even his slippers refused promotion. But Titus believed success was hiding nearby, waiting for him to defeat sleep. One night, Bethel tried the final appeal. "Please rest," she said. But Titus touched her hand with the confidence of a man going to war. "My love, I am doing this for us." Bethel looked at him and asked, "For us to fight later?" He didn't answer. He pressed play and smiled as another man began shouting. What he did not know was that ambition is sweet in theory, but in practice, it wakes up grumpy. Titus discovered this slowly. At first, he believed the tiredness was temporary. Great men always suffered in biographies. They walked long distances, ate once a day, and slept on dreams. Titus decided that he too would soon become a paragraph in somebody's book. But for now, every morning when the alarm clock rang, Titus regretted the future. He would open one eye, then close it again quickly as if daylight was rude. His body lay on the mattress like a government project abandoned halfway. Bethel would already be awake, tying her scarf and watching him with a mixture of pity and irritation. "General of motivation, your soldiers are waiting." Oh, Titus groaned. "Just give me 5 minutes, please." Well, the 5 minutes always produced another 5 minutes. Then panic would enter. He would jump up, knock his knee, and start to search for his socks like a man searching for a missing document. Unfortunately, his temper started to become short. One morning, Bethel placed tea on the table and said, "Drink." Titus tasted it and frowned. "It's too cold." Bethel looked at him. "You woke up too late. That's why it's cold." Titus hissed, "You should warm it." Bethel laughed without joy. "I am not your assistant." And so he carried the cup angrily to the microwave. Inside his mind, he blamed everything except the truth: sleep. On the way to work, Titus felt his brain moving slowly like an old computer. At the office, he opened his laptop and stared at the screen. Words refused to cooperate with him, and the numbers danced without respect. He went to the restroom, looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "Champion," but the mirror did not respond. By afternoon, he felt really heavy, but his pride refused to lie down. Even when he drank coffee, it shook his heart but did not repair his mind. When he returned home that evening, Bethel expected him to help her small, maybe to assist in setting the table or maybe to discuss future plans. But Titus entered like a visitor and announced, "I am tired," and fell on the chair. Bethel looked at him with wide eyes. "Tired from what?" "Work," he replied, "plus night shift, Abi," she added. Titus frowned. "I am building something, remember." Bethel nodded slowly. "Yes, you are building dark circles." Titus did not laugh. Their evening passed in silence. Dinner came and Titus ate without tasting the food. His mind was already preparing for night university. By 10 p.m., Bethel yawned. Titus, please, she begged. Come and sleep. He shook his head. If I sleep, we will remain here. Bethel wanted to know where they were going to exactly, but she lacked energy for debates, so she went alone. She lay on the bed listening to the motivational voices escaping from his earphones. Sometimes she heard them clearly say, push harder, outwork them. Rest is weakness. Bethel covered her head with a pillow and spoke to those men in her mind. Come and carry him now. Gradually, it became his permanent routine. Titus began to forget small things. He forgot to send emails, forgot to reply messages, and forgot where he kept his keys. One day, he wore 2 different socks to work. A colleague laughed and asked, "Is this a new style?" Titus looked down. For a moment, he wanted to blame fashion. Instead, he blamed stress, but stress did not arrive by itself. He invited it nightly. At home, Bethel noticed something more dangerous. Titus now lacked patience. Small matters became big in his eyes. If food was delayed, he would frown. If she asked questions, he would snap. If she requested for time together, he would postpone it and say, after our breakthrough. One evening, Bethel asked him, when is this breakthrough coming? Titus answered confidently, soon. How will you recognize it? She asked. He paused and couldn't say anything more because that question had not appeared in any video yet. Later that night, she tried again. They sat on the bed before he started watching the videos. Titus, you are always tired. You are always angry and money is not increasing. What exactly are we doing? Titus felt attacked. You want me to relax? You want me to be average? Bethel sighed. I just want you to be alive. He waved his hand. Please save the drama. Bethel stood up. You are not hearing me. Titus picked up the phone and said, I am listening to people who have results. Please shift. Bethel shook her head. They are not even living in this house with you. Titus pressed play on his phone and just like that, the argument was postponed again. On weekends, Titus promised to rest. Yet, once evening arrived, he would return to the screen. He wrote business ideas he never executed, designed plans he never started, and spoke about the future with authority. But the present was falling apart quietly. Bethel missed her husband, not the body sitting in the chair. Oh. She missed the man who used to laugh, the man who used to tease her, the man who once slept. One afternoon, she met him in the kitchen looking confused. What are you searching for? She asked. My phone, he replied. Bethel stared at him in shock. The phone was in his hand, but he didn't know. Fear entered her heart small. This was no longer ambition. This was becoming dangerous. That night, she touched his arm again and said, please rest. Titus looked at her with red eyes and stubborn spirits. After I make it, he promised. Bethel turned away. If making it meant losing him, she did not want it. Unknown to her, she was already losing him. Titus did not know the exact day his mind began to protest because problems did not arrive with announcements. Before, it was small confusion, but now, forgetfulness entered the equation. He would walk into a room and forget why he entered. He would open the fridge and stare at it as if food might introduce itself. Bethel would ask, what are you looking for? And he would answer, I forgot. She laughed the first few times it happened. After all, everybody forgets, but his forgetting started increasing like debts. One evening, Titus was sure he had kept his wallet on the table. He searched everywhere for it, but it wasn't there. He even accused Bethel. Did you move it? Bethel shook her head. No, why would I move your wallet? He searched again, only to realize later that the wallet was in his pockets. Bethel looked at him carefully and said, you need to rest. Titus waved her away and said, "No need, my mind is full of ideas." Well, the ideas were not even paying rent. Soon, another thing began. Titus began to hear voices in his head. Not clear voices, oh, not people speaking his name. It was more like echoes of motivation speeches repeating in his head. Even when the phone was silent, he would hear, "Work harder, move faster, time is running." He would sit quietly and suddenly feel urgency for nothing specific. Bethel noticed he no longer relaxed. Even when sitting, his body vibrated. "Where are you going to?" she asked one night when he suddenly stood up. "Nowhere," he replied in confusion. "I thought I heard something." They both listened but heard nothing. At work, colleagues started complaining. The manager told him, "You are not yourself anymore." Titus forced a smile and said, "Sir, I am pushing myself." The manager nodded. "Push less, deliver more. That is what I want." That sentence hurts. Titus returned home that day irritated. "These people do not understand vision," he vented to Bethel. Bethel wanted to scream, "Which vision forgets meetings?" He had missed one earlier that week because he overslept after finally collapsing at dawn, and the opportunity moved to someone else. Yet, he blamed politics. He never blamed insomnia. His nights became longer. His eyes burned, but he refused to close them. He believed sleep was the enemy disguised as comfort, so he fought it bravely like a hero of empty battle. Then hallucinations began. The first one came like a joke. He saw movement near the door while watching videos. He quickly turned, but there was nobody there. He rubbed his eyes and muttered, "Maybe it's tiredness." He continued watching. A few minutes later, he felt someone pass behind him. He looked but saw nothing. This time, fear tapped him lightly. He stood up and checked the house. Bethel was asleep. Everything and everywhere was quiet. He returned, but the motivation had left. Still, he refused to go to bed. He must not surrender. In the morning, he told Bethel casually, "I thought I saw something last night." She stopped eating and asked, "What?" "Nothing, no," he quickly replied. "Maybe my eyes were deceiving me." Bethel did not smile. The next night, it became worse. Titus heard his name clearly. "Titus." He jumped up. Bethel woke up and screamed, "What happened?" "Did you call me?" he asked. "No," Bethel replied. They listened again, but nothing was there. It was only silence. Bethel sat up. Her heart was pounding by now. "Titus, you are not sleeping." Titus laughed. "Please, I am fine." But he was not. By now, dark circles had drawn a map under his eyes. His temper was thin and his concentration was leaking. He began to suspect things. He thought his colleagues were planning against him, and he believed opportunities disappeared because people envied his future. Bethel watched him talk to himself, and she did not recognize her husband. One afternoon, he returned home excited. "I have discovered why things are slow," he said. "Why?" Bethel asked. "Distraction," he replied. "Which one?" Bethel asked. "People who do not believe." Bethel felt attacked, so now she was the enemy. "Titus, I am scared," she said. He looked at her surprised. "Of me?" "Yes," Bethel replied. He wanted to laugh, but her face stopped him. He saw fear on it. He touched her hand and repeated, "I am doing this for us." But the words had lost power. That night, he tried to sleep early. He lay down, closed his eyes and opened them again. His heart was racing. What if others were walking while he rested, he thought. So he stood up and his phone came back to his hand again. Bethel turned to the wall and cried. She felt herself losing her husband to men who shouted on screens. Near morning, Titus finally slept, and when the alarm rang, he did not wake. He slept through it. By the time he arrived at the office, the job had already moved on without him. His manager looked disappointed. "Titus, go home and rest." The word followed him like a prophecy. Rest. At home, Bethel saw his face and understood that something had happened. "What happened?" she asked. He sat down slowly and muttered, "I think I am tired." Bethel nodded. "We need to see a doctor." By the time Titus agreed to see a doctor, he was totally exhausted. The morning after his manager sent him home, he sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing. His body felt heavy, but his mind refused to stay quiet. Thoughts moved like traffic without lights in his mind. He wanted to lie down. He wanted to run, and he wanted to cry. He did not understand himself. Bethel stood near the wardrobe watching him. She did not shout this time or beg. She simply said, "We are going now." Titus looked at her, and for once he did not argue. They entered the clinic like people who had finally surrendered their weapons. There were posters on the wall that showed warning signs, and Titus avoided reading them. He already suspected he would not like what he would see. When the nurse called his name, he stood slowly. Bethel walked beside him as a witness. The doctor was a middle-aged woman. She did not rush. She asked questions patiently, the way people ask when they wanted the truth, not drama. "What brings you here?" she asked. Titus opened his mouth, but the words delayed. Bethel helped him. "He does not sleep," she said. The doctor turned to him. "How many hours do you sleep?" Titus tried to calculate and said, Maybe 3. "Daily?" the doctor asked. Titus nodded. "For how long?" she asked. He hesitated, and Bethel answered, "For months." The doctor wrote something down and then continued. "What happens when you try to sleep?" "My mind runs wild," Titus said. "I feel like I am wasting time." The doctor nodded slowly and asked, "Do you have any mood changes?" Bethel laughed sadly. "He is always angry and impatient." "Any forgetfulness?" the doctor asked. "Yes, so," Bethel replied. "Do you see or hear things?" the doctor asked. Titus looked away and nodded. "Yes." The doctor leaned back. She had seen the story before, so she explained it carefully to them using words that did not insult but also did not hide. "Your brain needs sleep the way your lungs need air," she said. "Without sleep, everything starts failing. Your memory, your emotions, your judgment, even your perception." Titus swallowed hard. The doctor continued. "Motivation without rest becomes destruction." Bethel wanted to clap, but she held herself. The doctor went on to run some checks. Blood pressure, pulse, and reflex. She asked about caffeine, stress, and his work schedule. Titus answered like a student after examination. Finally, she closed the file and said, "I am going to prescribe treatment." Titus prepared himself for heavy drugs, maybe injection or maybe therapy. But the doctor looked at him directly and said, "You will sleep." Titus blinked 3 times. "Excuse me?" "You will sleep," the doctor repeated. "Minimum of 7 hours every night." Titus almost laughed. That was not prescription, that was laziness. But the doctor was not joking. She continued, "You will not use phone after a certain time. No videos, no stimulation. Your brain has to reset." Titus tried to resist, but successful people. She raised her hand to stop him. "I am not treating successful people. I am treating you." There was silence. Bethel pressed her lips to hide her smile. The doctor leaned forward and added, "If you continue like this, you will break down completely. You may develop anxiety disorders, depression, and many other serious physical illness. You are already hallucinating." The word entered Titus like a slap. Hallucinating. He was not a champion at this point. He was a patient. "So, what do I do?" he asked. "Sleep," she replied. "Just like that?" "Just like that," the doctor confirmed. "We will also support you with mild medication for a short period. But the main cure is rest." Titus shook his head slowly. All those nights, all those men shouting, all those suffering. Now the bed had won. Bethel squeezed his hand and asked, "Can you do it?" Titus looked at her. He remembered how afraid she had been, how distant he had become, how he nearly lost his work, and how shadows had begun speaking to him. He nodded. "I will try." The doctor corrected him. "You will not try, you will obey." For the first time in many months, Titus accepted instruction. Outside the clinic, life moved normally, unaware that revolution had occurred inside one stubborn man. They walked towards the car slowly. Bethel looked at him sideways and asked, "How do you feel?" Titus sighed, like somebody who had been digging a hole and had just discovered he was inside it. Bethel smiled. "Good. Now climb out of the hole." That first night, Titus tried to obey the doctor, but sleep refused to trust him. After all, you cannot insult someone for months and then expect friendship suddenly in one evening. By 8 o'clock, Bethel collected his phone. Titus hesitated small, like a child surrendering a toy. "What if something important happens?" he asked. Bethel raised an eyebrow. "What happened last night that made you rich?" He could not answer. She placed the phone inside the drawer and locked it. The sound of that key turning felt louder than any motivation speaker. Titus sat on the bed. The room was too quiet. He could hear the fridge breathing. He could hear the generator outside. He could even hear his own thoughts warming up for night shifts. "Work harder. Do more. You are late." He lay down and tried to close his eyes, but the mattress felt unfamiliar. Bethel switched off the lights and lay beside him. She did not speak. She knew encouragement might look like pressure at this point. Minutes later, Titus turned left. He turned right, coughed and sat up. "I am not sleepy," he whispered. Bethel opened one eye. "Just lie down." He lay down again, but it wasn't possible. His body wanted rest, but his mind wanted drama. He remembered the doctor's voice. "You will obey." So he closed his eyes and breathed slowly. Sleep came late, suspiciously checking whether he meant peace. But when it finally arrived, it carried him deeply. The next morning, something strange happened. Titus woke up before the alarm naturally. He sat up slowly. His head was light. He blinked. Where was the usual weight? Where did it go to? Bethel watched him. She asked, "How do you feel?" He searched for the answer. "I feel normal." They both laughed. Normal had become a miracle. At work, his colleagues noticed the difference immediately. "You look better," someone said. Titus smiled. "I slept." They nodded as if he had discovered a new technology. It continued like that for days. Every night, Bethel collected his phone. Every night, Titus fought the urge small, then surrendered faster, and his body began to remember what rest felt like. The hallucinations reduced, the voices disappeared, and the shadows returned to being ordinary objects. His anger also softened. He now listened when people spoke. He laughed again without forcing it, and he started finishing the task he began. Ideas became clearer, fewer, and more practical now. One afternoon, he came home with good news. "I solved something today," he told Bethel. She clapped. "While awake?" He bowed slightly. "Yes, madam." They both understood the joke. With rest also came knowledge. Titus began to see how foolish he had looked arguing against biology. He remembered how he dismissed Bethel and how he treated concern like an insult. One evening, they sat outside watching the sunset. Titus said, "I almost destroyed us." Bethel shook her head. "No, you almost destroyed yourself. I was only standing nearby." He asked, "Why did you stay?" Bethel shrugged. "Because sometimes people need somebody to wait for them to wake up." 1 month later, money did not suddenly rain, but something else did. Peace. Titus discovered he could think better after rest. He made fewer mistakes and wasted lesser energy proving he was serious. One day, he opened YouTube again in the afternoon and saw one motivational speaker shouting, "Wake up at 3 a.m. Titus laughed and switched it off. He now knew that Not every advice is universal, and not every sacrifice is wise. That night, he placed the phone on the table himself and slept. From then on, when friends visited and began to boast about sleepless grind, Titus raised his hand and warned, "Be careful." They laughed, but he did not argue. After all, he had once been them, and he knew that you cannot shout someone into wisdom. They must arrive there themselves. One day in bed, Bethel tapped him and grinned. "You snored again." Titus smiled in the dark. Good, because snoring meant he was alive. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lesson did you learn from the story? Kindly share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye.